So thank you everyone for joining me for this drop-in mini session given by the Levy Library. My name is Carrie Levinson. I'm the Reference and Instruction Librarian at the Mount Sinai West and Morningside campuses. And today we're going to be talking about journal selection tips and tools. So here's our agenda for today's session. I'm going to give you a little background on how you can select the right journal for your research. Then I'm going to go into a demonstration of two tools called Jane and PubsHub, which can help you select the right journals that are appropriate for the manuscript you have written. And then we're going to talk about writing a cover letter to submit with your manuscript. So I have everyone on mute right now. If you have questions, please either wait until the end, or if you have a burning question, type it into the chat box as we go along, and I will be checking that. So let's get started. Selecting the right journal for your research. Selecting the right journal really depends on your main goal. So you may have several goals, but we're going to split them into three main goals. So if your main goal is to maximize prestige, then what you want to do is compare impact factors in PubsHub, which is a resource I'll be showing you in just a few minutes. If your main goal is to be published as quickly as possible, then you should check PubsHub or the journal website for things like how long it takes them to peer review manuscripts, how long it takes them to actually publish, whether they offer an online pre-publication option, things like that. If your main goal is to get as many people as possible to read your work, then you should look into open access options. These are freely available resources that are not behind a paywall, so more people have access to them. You can also look at promotional tools offered by either the journal itself or the publisher of the journal. And you can take a look at readership or circulation statistics if they're available. And that's another thing that you can use PubsHub for, which we'll see very shortly. Just a little bit more on impact factor, which is that determination for prestige. A journal's impact factor is basically the number of the rate of citations that articles from a particular journal receive. So journals that have highly cited articles have a higher impact factor. Journal Citation Reports database is considered the definitive source for impact factor. We are not going to be taking a look at this database today, although the Levy Library does provide access to it, and that's because PubsHub also has that impact factor information in it. Here is the definition straight from Clarivet Analytics, who publishes impact factors. And here's the formula for determining impact factors. So basically it is, to get the most recent impact factor, you would look at the citations in 2019 to articles published in whatever journal you're looking at in 2018 and 2017. And that's divided by the total number of articles published in that journal in 2018 and 2017. This sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. Basically, it's a number. The higher the number, the more prestigious a journal generally is considered. So here are some tips and tools to help you select a journal before we go into two of these particular tools. So this is more low-tech, more old school. Look at the references you used in your own paper, because these are going to be journals that are similar to the area of study for your manuscript, which hopefully will make sense to everyone. You can perform a search using databases and put in those keywords that describe your study and see what journals the results are published in. So once again, this is going to be similar to your area of study. If you have a colleague who has been published more in the field that you're looking in, you may want to ask them for suggestions of potential journals that might be appropriate for your manuscript. There are a bunch of tools that are available to help you select a journal. We're going to be taking a look, as I mentioned, at the first two. So the Journal Article Name Estimator, which is also called JANE, and PubsHub, which is a paid resource available via the Levy Library website. There are also other journal selector tools available on the internet. So although we're not going to be looking at those, you can take a look at them on your own in the future if you want some more options. So here is a proposed workflow for how we can get our list of submission targets. So the first thing is to use one or more tools, for example, JANE, to generate a preliminary list of publication targets. Then we're going to plug those journal names into PubsHub, and we're going to see different factors such as rejection rate, how long it takes to publish, impact factor, whether they're open access journals, whether they are peer-reviewed journals, all these types of things are in PubsHub. Then we're going to consult each journal's website, and it's important to do this to ensure it publishes the type of article you've written, and also that your submission fits the aims and scope. So if you've written a case report, for example, you have to make sure that the journal you're interested in accepts case reports, because if they don't accept case reports, you're going to be automatically rejected, and you'll have wasted your time. So no one wants to waste their time. Take a look at the guidelines for each journal before you submit. And finally, from there, we'll create a final ranked list of submission targets. Ideally, you want 4 to 5 options. It can be more, it can be less. It shouldn't be one. I am all for you being as ambitious and optimistic as possible about your publications, but it's always good to have a backup. And ideally, several backups, just in case. So here's an example I'm going to use. We're going to do the demonstration now. So we are going to pretend that this is the title and abstract of our unpublished manuscript. In reality, this is the title and abstract of a published journal article, but for the sake of this demonstration, just go with me here. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go into JANE now. So JANE is a free resource on the internet. It is at jane.biosemantics.org. And what we can do is we can insert our title or abstract into this search bar here. A couple of things I just want to tell you about JANE before we do this. So JANE searches for the 50 articles that are most similar to your input. So once we put our abstract in here, it's going to search against that. You can also play around with this input. So I'm going to put in the whole abstract, but you can try putting in part of your abstract, part of your title, and see if that changes the results in any way. We're going to look for the relevance. We're going to look for the field. We're going to look at article influence, which is something similar to impact factor that I'll explain in a couple of minutes. JANE includes papers with abstracts that were published in the last 10 years. It's updated monthly. And although we're not going to really take a look at this, just so you know, JANE can also be used to help you locate relevant articles to cite in your paper, which is a point we would be passed for here. Or it can also help you find manuscript reviewers. But we're going to concentrate on this button here. So I am going to copy this abstract. So that's from my slide. Pop it in here and click on Find Journals. And so we get a nice list of different journals. And we're going to go through this so you can understand what these results mean. So the highest confidence level that JANE has come up with is for the Journal of Community Health, which is excellent because remember, this is an actual abstract in a published journal article, and this article is in fact in the Journal of Community Health. So Jane is on the ball here. But we also get results that this article is not in, and that Jane has considered to be similar to what we put in. So the first thing I want to look at here is the labels that we have here. So almost all of these results have these different colored labels. And the first one up here is Medline indexed. So if you hover over a label, it will tell you what it means. And what Medline index means is that this journal is indexed in Medline, which is a very large biomedical database. And it was reviewed by the National Library of Medicine, which runs Medline, at some point in time. But they do want to give you a little bit of a warning that authors should assess the journals that are listed to ensure they're not predatory. Predatory journals take advantage of publication models. They don't actually have high quality peer review processes or high quality editorial processes. They're basically just a cash grab. They promise that if you pay a fee, they will publish your article, but there's no quality control, basically. Those are predatory journals. However, generally, if a journal is indexed in Medline, it is not a predatory journal. So seeing Medline indexed is a good indication that this is a high quality journal. Another thing that being indexed in Medline does is if your goal is to increase your audience, to maximize your audience, Medline is a really big biomedical database. So if it's indexed in there, it's easier to find for many different kinds of readers. So more people will be able to access your article. So you always want to find journals that are indexed in large databases because it increases the discoverability of those articles. The second label here is PMC, and that stands for PubMed Central. And what that means is some or all of the articles of this journal are deposited. Sometimes there's an embargo period or a delay in PubMed Central. PubMed Central, once again, very large biomedical database, has free full text for the articles that are deposited in it. So if your article is accepted by the American Journal of Public Health, it may go into PubMed Central depending on that journal's policies. And that will be available for everyone to read freely. The third label down here is high quality open access. So I mentioned open access journals as another way to increase your audience. And they give you a definition here of what open access is. So this journal does not charge readers or their institutions for access. And because they say it's high quality open access, it's also considered to be of high quality. So if you're interested in finding a high quality open access journal, you can take a look at these labels here, these orange labels. Moving to the right here, here is the article influence score with a blue bar behind it. And once again, if we hover over it, it'll tell us what that means. So the article influence score measures how often articles in the journal are cited within the first 5 years after publication. So this is not impact factor. Jane is a free resource. They're not going to pay the money to license a proprietary resource such as impact factor, but they use article influence, which is something that is usually pretty similar to impact factor. So if you have a higher article influence score, then there's also a good likelihood that it's going to be a higher impact factor. These citations are also weighted. So they give an example here, being cited in an article in Science can boost a journal's article influence more than being cited in an article in a journal that no one's ever heard of. So Science is a very well-known, very prestigious publication. If you're in an obscure journal, your AI is going to be less than that. And the blue bar indicates the percentage of journals in Medline that have a lower AI score. So let's take a look here at our top result. So this has an article influence of 0.6. And of all journals, 56% have a lower article influence score. So this is not great, it's not terrible, it's sort of in the middle. If we look down here for the American Journal of Public Health, this has a higher article influence score, and it says of all journals, 95% have a lower article influence score. So if we wanted to look at something a little bit more prestigious, we might want to look at the American Journal of Public Health. Show articles here shows us how the confidence score was calculated for each of these journals. So the first one has a similarity to our abstract of 100%, which is good because this is the article we took that abstract from. So it should show a similarity of 100%. But there are also other articles within this journal that are similar or that Jane feels are similar. So you can take a look at this, and you can also explore more in PubMed to see if these are really similar articles to what you're looking at to compare to your manuscript, or whether they're really not. And you can do that for all the different journals here. We're not going to do that, but if you wanted to, you could. One thing I just want to point out is that you can select all of these results and then export them into a reference manager. If that is something you want to do, once again, we are not going to do that, but it is an option here. What we are going to do is we're going to pull out a few of these journal names and then plug them into PubsHub, which is our other tool that we're going to take a look at. So I like the Journal of Community Health because that's the highest confidence score here. So I am going to just copy and paste that into the document that I already have open. Let's also do the American Journal of Public Health. Current diabetes reports. This is an article about diabetes, so sure. The Journal of Adolescent Health, sure. This is about type 2 diabetes in youth. But I don't think I want contemporary clinical trials or work. Let's go down a little bit more. Let's go with diabetes care. So I have a nice preliminary list of 5 journals here. Okay, so now we are going to say goodbye to Jane for now, and we are going to go into PubsHub. So the way to do this is to go through the library website. It's library.mssm.edu. And there are 2 ways we can access the databases. So we can either look at database, the A to Z database list under Browse Collections, which will give us all the databases that the library subscribes to. Or we can click on this databases tab here because I know exactly which one I want to look at, and I'm going to type in PubsHub. So there it is. I'm going to click on it. I am off campus right now, so it will prompt me to log in. Remember, this is a subscription resource. So let me just quickly log in here with my Mount Sinai credentials. And here is PubsHub. So there are 2 ways you can search with PubsHub. You can search using therapeutic areas. So if you don't have a list of journals in mind, you can take a look at all these different areas and select the ones that are relevant to you. But since we do, in fact, have a list of journals, we're going to use the search journals feature over here. So I am going to plug each of these in, and then we're going to compare them. So let me close this. So we have the Journal of Community Health. There it is. I'm going to select it, and we're going to repeat the process for the next 4. So remember to select the correct journal. We do not want the Pan American Journal of Public Health. We want the American Journal of Public Health, so we'll select that one. Going back to current diabetes reports. selecting that, and we can see that we're selecting all of these because the number here is changing as we select more. And finally, diabetes care. All right, we have to scroll down a little bit. Here it is. And we can see that we have chosen 5 journals to compare. 5 journals is the limit for comparing on PubsHub. If you try to add one more, you are going to get this error message here. So now we are going to hit compare. And we get this nice big spreadsheet with a lot of information on it. So all of the journals are listed. Here we go. Therapeutic areas, so you can check on those if you're interested in a certain area. You can see who reads each of these journals. So a lot of people read this one. You can see the rejection rate here. So 97% is for current diabetes reports. So if I am a little nervous about that, if maybe I've been rejected a lot in the past, I might want to go with a rejection rate that is a little bit lower, like in the Journal of Community Health or the American Journal of Public Health. Each of these will have links to their journal website, which is very important to take a look at. Here's the impact factor information. And if we scroll all the way down here, we can see that it comes from Clarivate Analytics. So that is the producer of the Journal Citation Report database. So this is the impact factor that we definitely want to look at. And we can see that, I believe this is diabetes care. Diabetes care has the highest impact factor of these 5 journals. So if my main goal was prestige, then maybe I would want to look at diabetes care to publish my article in. Here are time frames. So they give it to you in both in submission and acceptance and in online and print publications, but there's also a color-coded graphic for each of these different designations. So if my goal was to get published really, really quickly, then I might want to go with current diabetes reports, which seems to be the least slow of all of these. There are circulation statistics, so you can see how many people read these journals every week. There's print and electronic circulation. There's frequency, how many times they publish per year, and many, many, many guidelines. So remember I said if you've written a case report and they don't accept a case report, they're not going to accept your case report. Here are 3 journals that do not accept case reports. So we could knock those out immediately if we had written a case report, because we know that those journals would not accept them. We can also see other things like whether this is a fully open access journal. None of these are. Whether they're indexed in PubMed or Medline. Yes, all of them are. Whether they're peer-reviewed journals. All of them say yes here. And so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different information on here that could be very useful to you in selecting the journal that is most relevant for your research. You can print this information or you can export it. We can also deselect a couple. So if we decided we don't want either of these, it'll go down to 3 here, and then we can export it to an Excel spreadsheet. And it'll show all of this information in a very nice, orderly way. And then we can go from there. Does anyone have any questions about Jane or PubsHub? Okay, so I'm going to go to our last agenda item, which is writing a cover letter. Oh, wait, I see there's something in chat. Okay, Great, thank you. All right, so writing a cover letter. The main thing I want you to know about writing a cover letter is that it's not a formality. It's important. It should be well written and persuasive. Your aim in writing a cover letter is so the editor is going to send out your manuscript for peer review, and it's going to go through the publication process. It should be written like a standard business letter. You should remember to proofread it, and then proofread it again, and then get someone else to proofread it. Make sure you're sending it to the right person. So do not send it to the wrong editor. Do not put the wrong name of the journal down. This is why proofreading is really important. That is going to look really bad for you if you send it to the wrong place. It should always include a statement that the research hasn't been published elsewhere and is not in consideration somewhere, so in the process of being published. Sometimes you'll also have to include a conflict of interest statement. Keep it concise. So do not copy and paste your abstract like we just did for Jane. You want to do sort of an elevator pitch. Why is this research important? Why will their readers want to read it? But keep it short. They do not want a letter that's 10 pages long. At most, keep it to sort of either half a page to a page. A page should be maximum for your cover letter. Publishers sometimes have their own templates, and we'll take a look at one of those. And you should always check the instructions for authors for any journal-specific information you're asked to include, because if you don't include it, your submission is going to be rejected. So here's an example of a poor cover letter. This comes directly from Springer, which is a very large publisher. And this is actually called poor cover letter on their website. So basically all it says is, I'm sending you our manuscript. We want it to be published. Let me know your decision. Thanks. There's no persuasion in there. It's just, here, read our entire paper. I'm not going to try to persuade you in any way that this is good. Not a good idea. You should include more than that. I did say keep it concise, but this is way too concise. Here's an example of a cover letter template from Taylor and Francis, which is also a very large publisher. So I think this is a better example of a cover letter. And it also tells you key information to include. So address the editor by their name, if you know it. Include your manuscript's title and the name of the journal. Once again, make sure it's the correct name of the journal. There's that mandatory statement that your paper hasn't been published somewhere else. You should briefly describe your research. Once again, why is it important? Why will readers find it interesting? And you can see this is the paragraph here that explains this. It's very short, but it gets the point across. Declare any conflicts of interest, and then include contact information for yourself and any co-authors. And that's it. That's the whole cover letter. And this is in the format of a standard business letter. Taylor and Francis would also like to remind you to check the specific requirements of your chosen journal to make sure you include everything you need to. Also a very important thing. This is not the end-all be-all of cover letter templates. There are other cover letter templates as well. Other publishers might have slightly different templates, but I thought that this was a pretty good example to show you of a good cover letter. So this is the type of thing that you should be writing when you're submitting your manuscript for possible acceptance to a journal.